Good morning, Chris Douglas.
Good morning, Simon. Good to see you, mate.
How you doing, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad at all, mate, given the circumstances right now. Yourself?
You still got a smile on your face. Yeah, not too shabby at all. I'm in the office. I'm being productive. Nothing to really complain about on my side. So we're just going to keep it going. But yeah, unprecedented times, as I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But as you say, just with your attitude there, it's about staying positive. Could be a hell of a lot worse. Obviously, difficult times, but could be a hell of a lot worse.
Indeed. Welcome to the show. Welcome to This is Qatar. This is episode number 3. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate. I'm looking forward to having a good chat with you. Why don't we start just with a quick introduction into who you are, who you represent, and what is it you do?
Yeah, sure. So obviously my name's Chris Douglas. I'm an executive wealth manager at the DeVere Group out here in Qatar. I've been out here now 6 years. So primarily my role is obviously helping and managing my clients' portfolios, predominantly expats who I look after, and now around about 300 clients who I manage their investment portfolios out here at the moment.
Very good. And so obviously we've known each other for probably about five of that 6 years, both in business and personally. Never really good circumstances personally with regards to the football. We always seem to get beat.
Never has been Scottish.
We need to change that circumstance next year. But obviously we know each other personally through, I'm a client of yours, you're a client of mine, which is great. You've helped me in investments and in life insurance and got things sorted out. So you look after some of my portfolio after Jason, who I worked with on the DeVere project. Our time in business goes back about 5 years, as I say, as well, in which we were kindly awarded by you to do your fit out. How's life in Doha Tower? It's not a bad location, right?
Yeah, do you know what? It's exceptional. It's a brilliant tower. For us, of course, image is very important. Yeah, especially when you've got new prospects, potential clients coming into the office. That kind of first impression is so important, and I think that's the great thing about Doha Tower. And I guess I maybe appreciate it probably a lot more than some of our new staff that come out and they're straight into the office, because I don't know if you've ever seen our office prior to Doha Tower, but it obviously wasn't a touch on the building, the facility, and everything, So yeah, it's exceptional, and I think we get the real benefit out of it when clients come in, and a nice place to go to work as well.
Yeah, I'll bet. Did you see James? And by the way, that was not scripted. Did you see James Green's very kind words?
Do you know what? I actually did. I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I picked up, because I know obviously for those that don't know, James Green's actually now our divisional manager in Europe, actually the son of our CEO. At the time though, he actually managed the region. So kind of Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, etc. And I think he had quite a bit of an involvement. Actually, I'm sure they don't mind me saying this, but I think today it's still our kind of most expensive office. We've got 100 offices worldwide. It's our most office. So, that means a lot to us. For me personally, the faith that the likes of James to sign that off, our CEO, to have us in there, that shows the faith they've got in Qatar as a place for business. Obviously, the people within the office as well. So yeah, I did see James's comments, and I know they were absolutely delighted with it as well, mate. So
it was very fond words. We've been speaking about something else, and obviously we had been discussing. Is he based in Barcelona now?
He was. I think he's actually now just relocated himself to the UK. Okay. So we had a little bit of a reshuffle in Europe, and yeah, I think he's based at the UK. He's got 2 young kids now as well, so I'm sure his wife had a little bit of a pull over him getting dragged back to the UK as well. But he's covering all of Europe. Good.
Okay, so I mean that was about 5 years ago, so a lot's happened in 5 years. But let's take a step back and let's talk about Chris Douglas.
Yeah.
Person, tell us a bit about now. About how you've recently taken a sort of sidestep into a more wealth management role. Sure. How has COVID-19 affected you as an individual, You've obviously had that job change, and just take us through your sort of career in general, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll probably take a step back. Firstly, just the start of my career. So I came straight out of school actually, and went straight into banking. In fact, I actually left school with a position to go and study PE teaching at Edinburgh University. And about a couple of weeks before I started, I got offered a position with Bank of Scotland, Lloyd's banking group. Just basically starting at the very bottom as a customer advisor on the tills, cashing checks for people, etc., etc. And I thought, you know what, my heart really wasn't in going to university. I just wanted to get on, that kind of corporate ladder, even if it was from the very bottom. And my view was always get into a sort of big, reputable institution, work hard, and you'll build your way up. So that was absolutely brilliant for me, going in, thrown into that at 17. Learned so much, I kind of compare it, and obviously, everyone's got their own journey, but I compare it to a lot of my friends that went to uni and dropped out a few courses and were doing something they had studying something they had no intention of actually following through with a career with, and it just didn't make sense to me. So yeah, so much I learned, and I look at where then that put me by the time they left uni, was just on a complete different spectrum just from the life skills that were learned. And Lloyd's Bank were brilliant in terms of, putting me through my exams. I had 3 promotions in 5 years with them. So eventually I became a financial advisor with Lloyd's. I think at the time when I was studying, I was their youngest ever. It was branded about. I never knew that officially, so I've never kind of tried to take that as an official title, but the youngest ever financial advisor that they had, certainly within Bank of Scotland. And yeah, it was just brilliant, great learning curve. And then when I was 22, that's when I actually got headhunted with DeVere. And yeah, began the process of going through DeVere's kind of stringent recruitment requirements, etc. Ended up out in Malta, which is where at the time our sort of head training base was. So went out there for a kind of short kind of course and a crash course, if you will, in the kind of international financial world, which is of course not dissimilar from the UK environment, but certainly a few key differences. Went through that and completed and passed my course in Malta. And at the time, it was sort of a case of you've got your choice of office, Chris, and that was the one thing that really attracted me to DeVere. I knew I wanted to go out and get a bit of international experience. So you were sitting there, you were looking an office in New York, an office in Miami, Dubai, Barcelona, all these great locations, but then everyone's probably thinking at the moment, well, why the hell did you end up in Qatar then? But for me, I wanted to know where was the best career opportunity, where was the best place for me to go and build up my client bank, so I stripped it all back. Well, other people that were on the course, probably a lot older than me and a lot more experienced, were choosing these locations for the lifestyle. I didn't really give a toss about the lifestyle. For me, it was, right, okay, where's the best career opportunity? Obviously, earning opportunity. And Qatar sort of ticked all the boxes. So I stripped it back. I wanted to see the top 10 performing offices. I wanted to see how they'd moved over the last 5 years in terms of what offices was growing. And everything sort of pointed towards Qatar. And I guess what kind of finally sealed it for me was obviously, as you probably know as yourself, Simon, your manager's probably one of the most important influences you'll have. I see you talk a lot about your kind of mentors and stuff. And I had a chat with Jason O'Leary, who you obviously know well from the reciprocal business between yourself personally and obviously the fit out stuff that we just talked about. And speaking to Jason, it was just like, yeah, this is someone that's gonna grow my career for me, and a great person to work under. And to be honest, it was the best thing I ever did.
Good. No, that's I concur with what you've said about Jason. We were always, I think we probably became quite good friends, and as well as clients. Sad to see him sort of move on to pastures new, but obviously everyone is looking to move their career in the right direction. It's interesting what you say about, you had that stringent recruitment process. You came out here at 22, is that correct?
22 it was, yeah. 22 when I came out, yeah.
I mean, that's when you're 16, 17 and you think, 22 is quite an old age, but when you actually get into an expat environment, a 22-year-old with, little international experience, what kind of challenges did you find acquiring clients, speaking to clients? You're talking about something that people are looking to invest in you and your company with their wealth, with their savings, and to trust a 22-year-old that in essence has done a crash course in Malta. You guys have got probably one of the hardest jobs in the hardest sectors, the hardest jobs. And I feel as if you're already operating from a negative standpoint.
Yeah.
How did you start to build up your client base, and what is it that you can tell me that completely abolishes that stereotype of what it is you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Firstly, the point you make, you say it resonates with me so much. When you're 16, 17, or even when you're 22, you feel like you've got all the life experience in the world. Now, 28, you look back on it, and I think now I probably don't think I've ever even said this to anyone, but even looking back on it, and now it's like, wow, that was a real big culture shock that I probably didn't even. Looking back on it, and this might sound really strange, but I think I was sort of in autopilot when I came out, and I don't know if anyone can maybe relate to that. It doesn't even make a lot of sense saying it, but I think looking back on it, I definitely didn't realise it at the time, but you were just in sort of autopilot. So yeah, it's always something that I've had to deal with, being in the industry, the banking industry from 17, being a financial advisor in the UK from 2021. It was always something I dealt with, and I wasn't just young, I looked young as well. I had the baby face to go with it, so I would get that so regularly, and I guess I learned to sort of use it as a benefit. I guess that when I had it in the bank, people would come into my office. Bear in mind, you already had the trust there when I worked for the Bank of Scotland, because people would be clients with the bank. The bank with the bank for 20 years. They were then coming in to see me. They maybe had an inheritance, for example. They were coming in to see me to find out where was the best place to invest it, whatever it may be. And yes, so often I get, Jesus Christ, what age are you? And I just kind of, again, I don't know, I sort of maybe learned to just use it as a positive, even though it obviously wasn't really a positive maybe at the time for someone to say that. But, I just had the sort of attitude, well, would you rather a 50-year-old who doesn't know what he's talking about, or a 21-year-old who's eager to grow his career?
It doesn't matter about age. It doesn't matter. I learned that. And that was such a Scottish response when you walk in somewhere and you go,
yeah.
But you're right. It doesn't. People would have had a first impression of you. He's young. He's not going to know anything. I don't really want to talk to him. But if you start to ask the right questions and you're inquisitive about what their problem is, and you start to give them the right answers, the stereotype completely disappears. And we were talking offline, and I certainly wouldn't say I had the same stereotype, because I have the understanding of what the difficulties that your companies like you and individuals like you and young guys like you coming out to an expat environment. I understand what you're going through. Years and years ago, when I went into sales, I was 16, and I was one of these annoying people that would pick up the phone and try and sell you kitchens or try and get appointments. The really annoying people that would interrupt Coronation Street or EastEnders, but I was very successful at it. And I've always been in sales, and I've always been a people person. You're very similar, albeit you did it more from a reactive customer service perspective in the banking. But we've always had the challenges of being young and being questioned about our experience. And then you look at the industry that you're in, add that to the fact that you're young, add that to the fact that you're an expat. You're doing not bad to be here for 6 years, Chris, to still, because you've always got a smile on your face. You're always positive. You always, your only negative is you're a Rangers fan, but we won't hold that against.
Can't blame me for that.
Also, you've always got a smile on your face, but you're in such a negatively stereotyped industry that
Yeah.
I remember you and I, we were out socially, not together, but we bumped into each other, and we bumped into one of your colleagues, and I said something similar to you and your colleagues, and your colleague turned around within about 10 minutes and he completely switched my mindset. He completely switched the question was, you must get these reactions from people that you don't know what you're talking about, that you're only in it for the lifestyle. You're only in it to go out and have a party or go to brunch or whatever the case may be. But within 10 minutes, he actually told me things that I had absolutely no idea were fact. Mm-hmm. And it was actually an amazing 10 minutes, albeit it was in a very social environment. Yeah. But you're in a negative position. How do you get over that? How do you speak to clients? I mean, it's hard enough to get clients with age and with reputation, but what is it you do to sort of calm the client down and give them that information that they need and that they want?
Sure. So I guess kind of in a couple of ways, obviously I spoke about the difficulties being so young with the Bank of Scotland, then coming out here at 22, by golly, I didn't know what had hit me, because all of a sudden you still had that, you're maybe even younger in this environment, you know, in terms of average working age, so it's even compounded more, if you will. And then secondly, you don't have the trust factor that I maybe had with the Bank of Scotland, where people either A, have had no dealings with DeVere, not even heard of DeVere, or potentially maybe in some cases spoke to someone that's had a bad experience or been hassled with a phone call, as you say, while they're watching Corrie or whatever. So it made it even more and more difficult. I guess I would always go back, from my point of view, very similar to the Bank of Scotland. I was never bothered about that walk-in reaction of, oh my God, how young are you? Because I knew, without sounding arrogant, I knew within 20 minutes of having a conversation about finances that they would go, wow, okay, this guy actually does know what he's talking about. It's very similar to the social experience you had with one of my colleagues. So yeah, that was it. But I guess what made the first year so tough is I was coming out without a client bank. So you've got to, and this goes for anyone coming out where 50 years old or 20 years old, you've got to build up that client bank and that reputation. Now, how you do that can be done through a number of ways. Obviously, probably the first source that you're going to maybe go to is maybe sending out some messages on LinkedIn. I won't deny that happens. Maybe, you know, reaching out to people through the telephone. So that, getting that first sort of 10, 15 clients. But once we'd done that, or once I'd done that, I very much kind of switched my method of working to referrals and introductions. And that sort of really, really kind of dealt with that, in the sense of I took on 10, 15 clients, you know, in my first year, which was a pretty slow year, you know, by standards. But I made sure that I looked after every single one of them. I made sure I gave them probably exceptional service in terms of speaking to them every couple of weeks, just to give them a little bit of an update on something. Whatever it was, I found it just an excuse just to speak to them. And I think people like that from their financial advisor or whoever's managing their money. They like to hear from you. They like to know that you're still there and you're still looking after things. And then what I started to do, and the big thing that changed it for me, was starting to do client events. So taking those kind of 10, 15 clients and saying, look, thank you so much for your business. It genuinely does mean a lot. I want to take you guys out for a brunch, or I want to, you know, host a barbecue for all you guys. Everything's on me. Please just bring along a couple of friends. Absolute no pressure in terms of the environment. We're not going to be talking about business, sales, whatever. But just bring along someone that you think I might be able to help in the same way as you. And then those people would come along, and then would, you know, drinks would flow. Inevitably it would go along to a little bit of business chat and maybe how I've helped their friends, and there was that degree of trust, and then it's just really kind of built from there, and to the point now where, to be honest, I mentioned I've got 300 clients. I don't really actively take on new clients anymore. You know, I've not really got the capacity, certainly not out really chasing new business, and just generally I'll find a couple of emails a week from just people saying, hi, you've helped, my friend with this area, can we have a quick chat? And then that's, the real great way how it's now working. And that's just
there's a lot of people that don't know what to do with, we're in a very fortunate position. You've been here 6 years, I've been here coming up 12 years. And, we're in a tax-free environment. We are, in essence, if you make the right choices, if you make certain choices some people want to go to brunches, some people want to have a nice lifestyle and live in, large villas, or, we live on the Pearl, it's a nice lifestyle, but generally there is some expendable income there.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know what to do with it. And a lot of people don't know really what DeVere Group do as a company, as an entity. Give us just an overview of what it is. You're in a position in which you're sitting with a client. A client says, listen, I'm earning X amount per month. I'm putting it back in my UK account and it's sitting there doing nothing. What kind of conversation would you generally have with a relatively new expat who's looking to gain some financial advice?
Yeah, I think that the impression that a lot of people have is the investment management side of it, and the investing and making your money grow or falling in value, whatever it may be. But that's probably actually comes secondary. Probably genuinely, if you ask any of my clients, probably the most valuable thing, and to use your scenario as well for someone just moving out here, probably the most valuable thing that we add is actually structure to their financial life, if you will. So for a lot of people, the first thing that I will sit down with them and, we'll not talk about investing. They'll maybe ask, what should I be investing in? I'll say, look, this conversation is not about that. Let's look at your financial picture. Let's look at what your short, medium and long-term goals are. And let's make sure we build a plan to get there. So actually the financial planning and that discipline, as you talked about, a lot of people are in the fortunate position out here to have a little bit of disposable income. It's very, very easy, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this can be honest enough to admit that before you know it, you can click your fingers, you can be out here 5 years, 10 years, earning this great tax-free salary, and you've not actually made a financial difference to your life by investing for your retirement or whatever it may be. And I think that's an easy trap for so many people to fall into. You can get what we call the sort of lifestyle creep. And I think it does happen to everyone that moves out here, but you've just got to, as I say, apply that little bit of discipline. There genuinely is no better time to start doing that than when you first come out. As we're going to come on to chat about in a little second with my YouTube channel, but I just done a video recently on, taxing yourself 10%. That's just a kind of very round piece of advice. Of course, it's always a lot more personalized than that, but that's the first. When I started working at the bank at 17, fortunately my mum kind of drilled it into me. It was like, whatever paycheck you get, take 10% off, tax yourself, put it in an account for X, Y, or Z. And that was always kind of the route that I went down. So
if anything, that's probably the easy bit, and I'm only talking from personal experience. The harder part, which I'd like you to touch on, is what do you do with it? You've got the 10%, and the stereotype, as everything does, it evolves through the decades. So financial advice and investments is no longer just putting money into merchant banks and stocks and shares. It's now going into alternative type of investments. You've obviously got your property side of the business with regards to property investments. You've got your life insurance and critical illness plans. You've got general savings plans on a monthly basis, and you put the money aside and you forget about it for 15, 20, 25 years. I definitely think that from a state pension perspective, it's no longer a viable option. There's just not enough there to live on, even for residents in the UK, never mind domiciled expats like ourselves. Sure. So you've got to look at options. So you take the 10%, you put it aside. What are the typical options that DeVere offer for that money to actually work for your clients rather than just sitting in a bank? Because we all know the banks don't help us.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of key thing, as I say, with DeVere as well. The services and the options that we now have are are so extensive compared to our competition. Obviously, as you're aware, we recently launched, around 2 years ago now, launched the kind of elite property service for clients wanting to invest in property throughout the world. In certain areas. So yeah, from an investment point of view, again, it really comes down to the individual, because all financial planning is of course personalized. So, you're looking at doing a detailed risk analysis, with people, what your goals are. So for example, if you're saving for 5 years to build up a deposit for a house, and I'm saving for 25 years to build up a pot for my retirement, well, we've got very different goals in terms of the time frame. The investment structure is going to be completely different, because if there's a market crash, you've not got too much time to actually have recovery. Whereas if I get a market crash in my 25-year term for saving for retirement, it's a great thing because I can invest more and I know I've got plenty of time to recover. So it's really vast in terms of the investment side, and you're right. It's the financial planning side is a lot simpler. I'd argue it's a lot more actually important. The investment side does come secondary, but of course then that's where really the hard work is done, in terms of managing the investment portfolio, making sure it's risk.
Taking money. It's not just about taking the to sort of put a synopsis around it. You speak to the client, and you agree potentially on a monthly contribution that they can't set aside. Let's call it the 10% tax for want of your term. It's then not, the job is not done. It's not just about putting that money aside and magically it will grow. A lot of people don't understand the work that goes on behind the scenes, and I can selfishly relate to that, because it's not just about, when it comes to the office and the build of the office, the build just doesn't happen like that. There is so many things that happen in the background as part of a process that allows the build to happen. You'll probably concur with this, but probably about 10 days before we handed over your office, you're standing there looking at it going, there's no way this is going to be ready in 10 days. And then miraculously it actually happens because the process has taken shape, and you're handing over, and the following day we're all going and celebrating and handing over your office, which is great. People don't understand the structure. As you said, they don't understand the planning that goes involved behind the scenes before the the plan is put in place. During the plan, the end is so far away that it doesn't necessarily matter. And again, that's part of that education. And you touched on it earlier, and I've seen some of your videos. You've introduced me to these videos. We're both doing quite a lot of social media. How important has the YouTube channel been, and your videos been on social media, for educating your clients? What kind of feedback are you getting?
Yeah, it's something that really, to be honest, I've always really wanted to get into, and always had it in my mind, and it's one of those things that I just never really got round to. I guess two things sort of triggered it. One, obviously the situation that we're in with COVID-19, trying to be a little bit more efficient, and secondly was probably for the first time towards the end of last year, the start of this year, I actually felt like my number of clients that I was managing was starting to get on top of me a little bit, in terms of, I've always really prided myself on giving an exceptional service to all of my clients. For the first time ever, I felt like I wasn't actually making quite that regular contact with some clients, and I thought, right, I really need to get on top of this and address it. So a really efficient way now to be doing that, rather than calling round 300 people, which I will do, but not doing that every 2 weeks, is I'm going to be doing regular, so I do regular kind of market updates. So we've done a live webinar, for example, 3 weeks ago, which was a kind of COVID-19 investment market update and investment opportunities. And yeah, the feedback that I got on that was kind of blew me away, to be honest. I think clients really appreciated it. And I was sort of inundated after it, if I'm honest, which is a nice thing to complain about, because so many people were sharing it around, with friends and whatnot, and being inundated with inquiries through that, which was great. And as I say, I think it's something we probably come on to and chat about in a little bit, but simply something that I'll carry on long after. I think a lot of things from COVID-19 will trigger a change in the business world. This is definitely going to be something that I'll be encouraging, certainly all the advisors within DeVere to be looking to do, because yes, it adds that excellent service, but I think for, again, talking about prospects, again, talking about how do you build that level of trust before they become a client, well, seeing something like that, seeing me talk about markets for an hour and giving a market update and investment opportunities, I think people watching that video, again, very quickly can see that, right, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I need to have a chat with him.
It has multiple purposes. These webinars that you're doing, the social media videos. I remember one of your colleagues, I said this earlier, Reese, was from a property partner. That was one of the first videos I watched of you quite some time ago. Content and education. One of my mentors within the sort of property side, Rob Moore, always says, you don't know what you don't know. So whether you're repeating things that 60, 70% of your clients already know, the other 30% or the potential clients that don't know those elements, that's useful to them. Keeping in touch with your clients through those different mediums. I agree with you. I think there's going to be so many changes to the way that business is done. Certainly, I think for companies like you, where you're trying to keep in touch with clients, and the stereotype again, or the norm is to go and visit them at their homes, or to go and catch up with them through social gatherings, which there's only so many social gatherings that you can do. But jumping on a Zoom call, or obviously a phone call, but I actually think, and this is just kind of off the cuff, but I think Zoom calls and video conferencing or video calls will become more popular because they're now so accessible on your phone. You can have Zoom on your phone. Yes, audio will still be popular. Not everyone is comfortable on video calls, but I think the percentage of shift to video calls, the percentage of shift definitely to video meetings. Certainly it will bring the world a lot closer together. It means that your regional training can happen. It means that regional roles, which again, I spoke with my previous guest, Hussam Gawish from HKA, who ironically is your neighbor, in a very similar scenario, has said that, his regional role, which is the Middle East and North Africa, he can actually sustain or maintain his relationships with clients and colleagues from Qatar in a much easier manner and a much easier way now that what has happened with these lockdowns. There's no denying that what is happening in the world is rumors galore. Where did it start? Why did it start? How many people is it going to affect? The markets are going to dip. They're not going to crash, albeit I think US oil investors would disagree with that. But that again will sort itself out in due course. There is so many changes that are going to happen for the benefit, but no one can ignore obviously the travesty and the fatalities that are going on. But businesses will recover. I do believe that businesses will recover. But do you think it will change the way that your company does business globally? Do you think it will change the way that you look after your clients, even more so with your YouTube channel? You're already doing that. You're already doing your social media, but maintaining that client relationships. Do you think COVID-19 has actually been, if anything, a benefit to future growth of businesses?
Generally, I mean, firstly, obviously, as you touched on personally, it's, obviously an absolute pandemic and a lot of people are dying, and that's obviously absolutely horrible. But from a business point of view, we've been, DeVere as a company, I would say, largely unaffected over the last 4 to 6 weeks since it's really started to impact Europe and obviously here. Absolutely, I think it's going to change my business and how I work. Already straight away more efficient. A standard day for me would be getting to the office in the morning, completing a bit of paperwork, and then probably driving around Doha and doing 3-4 meetings maximum would be my capacity usually. You're driving whatever, what the traffic can be like as well, 45 minutes between meetings or whatever it may be. And that was your sort of ceiling. Now I'm seeing myself doing 8 to 10, Zoom reviews and consultations without really blinking. And this might sound a little bit crazy, and some people will disagree with this, but I actually feel like the meetings are a lot more valuable for the one reason. Of course, you and I are both people person. We like the face-to-face, and you can't buy that and you can't replace that. But with my job, when you're going through and you've got the Zoom facility to share the screen, I actually feel as if it's actually been a lot more interactive with the clients. You know, because I'm going through, I'm showing them calculations, I'm throwing up a fact sheet of an investment on the screen, I'm talking them through it. Whereas that's almost lost a bit in face-to-face, where you can spin the paper around and show, or you can sit and draw something out. But I don't know, there's just something that seems to be, and I'm sure there'll be some people out there that will agree with me, no, absolutely, I'm losing the face-to-face touch, and I want to get that back. But for me, genuinely, I feel as if the meetings have been a lot more almost in depth, and a lot more understanding from clients.
The reality that you need to meet with people face to face. You know, the amount of meetings. When I first came out and was working with KPS, one of the great things that Alex Hunt said to me was, make any reason to go and see your client. The more that your client sees you, the more they're going to get to know you, the more you're going to get to know them, etc., etc. So there's never a negative to go and see a client. However, we're in such a, globally, we're obviously very, very busy. Qatar is just nuts at the best of times. So for you as an individual and as a type of company with, you know, not necessarily business to business, but business to consumer, people are at work. People are struggling to find time. They want to spend time with their family. They don't want to be interrupted. If anything, this is going to be a perfect opportunity to say, listen, they can then control the time. They can control the time that you spend with them. You know, again, with the greatest of respect, I've had financial advisors in my house back in the UK for 3 hours. No one has 3 hours to spend with an IFA. Again, no disrespect, but if you're on a Zoom call and you say, right, all I need is 30 minutes, let's focus on an agenda, let's focus on what you want to talk about, and it makes the meetings collectively, whether it's my meetings or yours, far more productive. And then you have the stupid, and again, I'm being very flippant, but people will always find the positives, and I am trying to find the positives. If there's less cars on the road, there's less people going to meetings, it then has a knock-on effect on efficiency on the roads. It then has a knock-on effect on less accidents. Maybe not in Qatar. There's always going to be accidents in Qatar. But less accidents on the road. And of course, environmentally, it is long-term going to have an impact. You look at the amount of, I'm trying to think of they were saying that the amount of carbon emissions, or the level of carbon emissions, has reduced over the last couple of months. This is having positive impacts, and we're not taking away from the sheer hell that a lot of people are going through. But it seems to have been a bit of a kick up the backside that business needed to become more efficient, to actually say, stop getting in your car, stop going to meetings that are not necessary, stop wasting people's time for 3 hours. Why don't you just do, and we've had voice technology, video technology for about a decade, probably more. Again, I'm being very, very quick with this, but it's never really taken off. You've had Skype for quite a while. Zoom has just appeared from nowhere. Microsoft Teams is obviously kicking in, various other WebEx platforms and Cisco platforms and things like this, but they're being used by SMEs. The video conferencing world was Cisco, was Microsoft, was multinationals like oil and gas companies. Now, a company like mine is doing business on 2 projects with stakeholders in Europe, the UAE, Qatar, and further afield, some even in America. The only hindrance is time zone. That's the one thing you're never ever going to change, is time, and of course time zone. But it's actually making business far more efficient. And I'm actually quite excited with the business opportunities that we can do as a company. And I'm sure you'll be the same, because the amount of clients that you can reach out to, and the amount of clients that you can educate, and the stereotype that you can actually move on from, is going to be as a consequence, albeit, you know, a fortunate, fortuitous consequence of what's actually happening. So it's exciting times, and it'd be interesting to touch base with you, you know, in, let's say, 6 months' time, and we readdress where we're at. Hopefully things have settled down, but it'd be interesting to see what happens with business. You know, I'm I'm potentially looking at reduction in clientele because less and less SMEs are going to be looking at office facilities. They're not going to need office facilities because they're working from a collaboration space like WeWork or Workington, or they're working from home because it's not necessary. And again, the government's going to have to think about how they deal with that from a trade license perspective. I think that will change maybe DeVere's approach to office sizes. Do you think that consultants and IFAs can work from home as productively as the office, or do you think the office is still going to be needed for that motivational purpose?
It's sort of the million-dollar question at the moment. I guess the proof will be in the pudding in 6 months, 12 months time, when we start to see what actions, kind of senior management or CEO put in place. To answer your question directly, I absolutely do think consultants, as I say, personally, I've been a lot more efficient, really, and more productive since working from home over the last 4 weeks. Is there things I miss about an office environment though? Absolutely there is. I think again our business is sort of unique though. If you take, yes, you can have that cost saving and you can maybe maintain efficiency, but then do you take away having that base, that first impression for the clients that's worked so well for us with the brilliant unit that we have in Doha Tower? So I think the answer is probably in between both, in the sense of you potentially downsize. I think we'll always need to have a base. We always need to have an office because clients want to come in and see that and have that trust, especially new clients that are coming on board. And the jury's still out on our business development side. Is that as efficient working from home? So the jury's still out on that. I'm not entirely convinced personally. I think, when you have your business development team in together, bouncing ideas off each other, keeping motivation, as we've talked about in our industry, it can be a thankless task at times for the business development guys. So yeah, they've had to adapt how they work, which I think is positive and good. And we have adapted so much incredibly over the last 6 years, even since I've been here, excluding COVID-19. So the way I would personally see it is, a smaller office space, consultants and advisors essentially based from home, only coming into the office when paperwork's needed to get handed to the admin team, and you'd have the admin and business development team in a small sort of office space with a couple of meeting rooms. Is probably realistically where I would see it going. But then again, our senior management might have a different idea. I really, really don't know yet. The proof will be in the pudding in 6 months.
You're right. It could be people start to make decisions in 6 months' time or at the end of their lease, and then the world. I don't think this will happen, but the world society changes its mind and realizes that digital relationships, remote relationships, video call relationships are not the same thing. You could take, picturing your office in my mind, you've got about six or seven closed areas, that client and consultation rooms, and then you've got quite a large 54 to 60 desk open plan area. That in itself could, in essence, become obsolete if people are working from home. So you're halving the size of your office, which is an impact on overhead, a positive impact on overhead, a huge positive impact on overhead. But then you're then looking to, you're looking at the advisors. It's potentially going to give you it's a recruitment process in itself, because if you take 60 advisors, for want of a number, they're all working from home, you're actually going to start to see which ones are motivated and which ones are not, which ones are adaptable and which ones are not. So you then might obviously reduce the numbers, but you're taking the negative performers out of that situation and focusing on the positives. So it has various degrees of changing the way your business,
playing devil's advocate though, you're right. There's people like myself that would be more productive working from home. There's definitely advisors that have been less productive. playing devil's advocate though, would I have, if rewind back 6 years, would I have made it if I didn't have an office and I didn't have experienced consultants around me on a daily basis to guide me? Probably not, if I'm being brutally honest. So there's guys I know in my team that are not as efficient working from home, but that's not necessarily maybe due to laziness or a lack of motivation. In some cases, they actually need a lot closer support from the senior advisors, from management as well. So, yeah, as I say, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with it. I think it's, the head's well above me looking at the costs and looking at the disadvantages of it and weighing up, if like any business decision, if it's the cost saving is worth the disadvantages that will come by doing it.
Yeah, there's always pros and cons, because each individual is different. Each client is different. You can work from home and I'm your client and we're happy to have this kind of relationship. Yeah. You could have an advisor that's not as experienced and a client that wants to do face-to-face. It completely changes the circumstance that the office is required, both for the client and for the individual. So no, I agree. There's pros and cons for both. But
yeah,
I think
and clients as well. You'll get some clients that will prefer face-to-face. You'll get some like you that don't want someone in the house sitting drinking their tea for 2 hours. There'll be people that like that face-to-face service and want it. There'll be others that find it so much more efficient and interactive doing it over a Zoom call with video. But as you say, the technology's there. And it's certainly not affecting at the moment, certainly not affecting us for business at the moment. If anything, as I say, obviously the market impact that's been caused by COVID-19 has actually made us a lot busier, because clients, it's really, really important, like I said, to all the advisors in my office, at the start of this. Our job's brilliant, it's nice and fluffy when you're turning up and there's a 10% annualised return that you're presenting. Our job's a hell of a lot more important when things have fallen 10, 20%. It's so important that we're educating clients as to why they shouldn't be withdrawing their funds and potentially why they should be investing more. And a general attitude, unfortunately, that exists in the industry worldwide, probably even more so in the Middle East, is you'll get advisors with that attitude of, oh my God, I don't want to call this client and tell him that he's 100K fallen to 90K. And that just baffles me. It's people want the biggest complaint, and I can say this, the biggest complaint DeVere has as a company, over 100,000 clients now. And the biggest complaint, the most consistent complaint that we have is not that my money didn't perform well, which is incredible for a financial advisory. The biggest, and I'm sure all financial advisors are the same, the biggest complaint that we have is I've not heard from my advisor. And again, that's just lunacy. The amount, and as I say, that's something that worked really well with the webinar. We were so reactive to do that. Got all of our clients on. Any that missed it, we recorded it and sent to it. And it was an hour of me talking as to why the markets fell, comparing it to 2008, showing what the recovery time was to 2008. And for anyone that actually watched it, I actually put in live examples of people that withdrew their money in 2008, how it impacted them, people that stayed invested but stopped investing in 2008, and people that stayed invested and continued to invest. And it was almost like, this is it's obviously a different crash, but every crash is unprecedented, where it was the subprime mortgage crash in 2008, 2000 tech crash, World War II. They all got one thing in common: markets fell and they'll recover over the long term. And yeah, that's the kind of key thing that we're saying to people, and it's totally understandable from a client point of view. Again, I've heard of consultants, why is this guy complaining? His portfolio's only fallen 10%, the market's fallen 30%, it's performed exceptionally well. But yeah, it's people's hard-earned money. They're going to be emotional about it. Of course they are, but it's our job to educate them as to why they shouldn't have that emotional reaction. And why they should look at it level head. But it's a very difficult thing to do. I even find it difficult with my own portfolio, and I'm conscious of all these principles. So I can only imagine what it's like for someone that works in oil and gas, that's invested hard-earned money. And really, at the end of the day, all they're looking at is the bottom line. They maybe don't have a real good in-depth understanding of the investment. And that's really where I'm really passionate about the job and why it's so important to be.
You've just said something that is very relevant, because if you, as an experienced financial professional, are not necessarily concerned, but you understand, but you're a little worried about a drop, and you feel aggrieved about that drop, and you're educated in the industry, then you're going to get non-educated, relying on client expectation setting from your company or other advisors. Of course, they're going to be worried. I have a very, very close friend who has worked in stocks and shares and has done very, very well out of it. And he, every single day, will speak to me or my wife, and he will complain, not in a negative way, just I can't believe this is happening. But he, of all people, know, having been in this industry from a banking perspective for not just a decade, decades, knows it's going to recover, knows it's going to come back, but it still affects the here and now. It still affects the mindset of, I can't believe there's nothing you can do about it. It's an automatic reaction. He knows it's going to recover, but it doesn't stop the emotion being there. So if the emotion is there with someone as experienced as you, or as my close friend, then it's going to affect the mindset, and it's going to affect the emotions of your clients. And I think, just to sort of finish off on that chapter before we close, it's very much about client expectation. Doesn't matter the industry. It's about when Jason and myself were discussing, when is the office going to be finished? How long is it going to take? What's the process we need to go through? What's the potential risks? And are we going to get it done on time? Because I need my advisors to be in here, to be excited, to see what's going on, and to work. So setting Jason's expectations for him to then set your expectations was very, very important. That's exactly the same. If you set your clients' expectations along the lines of, if you put in $1,000 a month and it's going to grow by 25% a year, irrespective of any crashes, and then of course COVID-19 happens, you've let the client down. You would rather turn to the client and say, I can give you consistency of 3 to 5% a year, and it performs at 9. You overperform and underdeliver.
Totally.
Those expectations for them.
Totally agree. The analogy you use in terms of that's really relevant to your fit outs. If you're promising things will be ready in a month and it ends up being 3 months away, of course it affects the client experience. And I think I've done a video actually recently on the YouTube channel about 5 things to look out for when appointing a financial advisor. And one of the principles involved in it was promising high returns. Let's not get away from it. The Middle East compared to US, Europe, UK is a fairly unregulated market when it comes to financial advice. So you do need to really dance carefully when appointing a financial advisor. And one of the number one red flags for me is being promised, someone sitting down promising you 20-25% returns without risk. That it just doesn't happen, So as I say, and that's important, setting client expectations. And that comes through, again, regular contact and service as well. Because, you can do that at the start, set them out, right, your growth expectation for your risk score is 7% per annum. But then if you don't speak to them for 2 years and then turn up and that's kind of gone to the back of their mind. Whereas if you're constantly having regular meetings, showing what the target, because it's not just, as I said again at the start, about just investing. It's actually about hitting a financial goal, whether it's retirement, your kids' college fund, buying a house, whatever. So I'm always taking the portfolio back and saying, right, okay, this is the target we're going to, this is where we're at the moment, this has been the growth, and this is where we're going to get to for it.
No, 100% agree. Chris, I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much once again for being part of this. We will put the podcast out in the coming days, and we'll obviously do an introduction to you as an individual and DeVere. But I'd love to also point people in the direction of your YouTube channel. So make sure that you send a link. But how else can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out to Chris Douglas?
Yeah, obviously number of platforms that are out there. So as you mentioned, the YouTube channel that's recently been launched, that's called Investing Made Simple, dash Chris Douglas. So you can obviously search for me on there. How that channel works is it's got essentially two, just very quickly, it's got two platforms. I'll be posting 2 educational videos per week on a Monday and Friday, which is just really for the Joe public, just general little investment tips. For example, I done a video last week, as I mentioned, on 5 things to look for when appointing a financial advisor, and a video on what is a dividend. So very simple little educational videos for the self-investor, really. That platform, as I mentioned as well, also serves as a source for basically sending private updates to my clients, so they're going to get regular market updates that only they can view, exclusive product updates, etc., that they can view, etc., as well. So do subscribe to the channel and you'll get the educational content twice a week. If anyone that's based in Qatar that does want to reach out for kind of a personal chat, or maybe to put you in contact again with maybe one of our other advisors, then LinkedIn. So you can again reach me on Chris Douglas on LinkedIn. My email address as well, chris.douglas at DeVere-Group.com. And yeah, more than happy to help anyone that's got any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Selfishly, just at the end, we spoke about it at the start. A lot of similarities with regards to processes in my industry and processes in your industry, and how COVID-19 is going to affect it. I'm intrigued as to how you found, from sort of kind of in the background watching. I think there was quite a few of you and your colleagues that would be coming, to the site to see the evolution of the office. Just intrigued, what was the kind of most surprising part of the fit out process that you felt? What was the kind of takeaways that you saw from what we were doing for you, and what did you think of the end result?
Sure, yeah. You say, rather unfortunately, it was literally a couple of months prior to me being promoted to area manager, so I didn't have too much direct involvement. But as you say, I'm one of the lucky ones that had the experience of obviously the office that we were in previously, which was just across the road. So you're right, we were regularly over looking at the update, and yeah, it did just shock me, obviously, that anyone that's been to our office, the space and how it was laid out. And you're looking at, I think our move-in date, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was March, sometime in March. And I remember being over there a couple of weeks prior to it, and you're sort of looking around and going, we're not moving in. This is typical Qatar. We're not. This is going to be done the end of the year, kind of thing. And maybe that was just my complete inexperience with how a fit-out process works. But yeah, bang on the intended move-in date, we were in there, and the office is just laid out so professionally. It's so efficient for what we want. I know obviously you spent a lot of time with Jason, James Green, perhaps even Graham Bentley, who was over, designing all the little sort of details, from the whiteboards on the wall to the layout of the meeting rooms, the training rooms and stuff, and also having that kind of, as you say, the main area where we've got 50, 60 desks that kind of help to create that kind of camaraderie between the business development guys, etc. So yeah, I don't think I could have done it any better myself.
No, thanks very much. It was literally, I remember that the size of the reception desk, I think it's about 3.4 meters. Yeah. And the elevator is 3.4 meters. So we literally just managed to get it in at a certain angle, get it upstairs and move it in on that evening. We were there, I think Jason and I had gone for a bite to eat with a couple of my colleagues at like 9 p.m. while the reception was being finished, and we went back. So I think technically we were an hour late. We finished at like 1 a.m. But the day that you were, that was the Thursday night, because everyone had gone out to brunch. Both I took my team out and you took, or Jason took your team out, and everyone congregated in the morning. And I think bags under my eyes were telling, because we came in, I don't know, 10 o'clock or 10:30 the following morning. So it was touch and go, but it is, again, it's a bit like an education process and setting the expectations. Everything is about the planning at the front end. Everything, we've potentially got projects that take, let's say it's 12 weeks. We could plan for 6 weeks. We could do designs, we could do procurement, we could do samples, mood boards, et cetera, et cetera. We could do the civil defense paperwork, and then it actually takes 6 weeks to build it. But you get to 7 days prior to handover, and you're still sanding down walls, and you're in you're basically a construction site. You know, within that 7 days, the turnaround and the finishes, the carpets go down very quickly. Again, we spoke about Hamish Kirkpatrick is now Faithful and Gold in Oman, but he was at Atkins at the time. He recommended us to Jason, and the project that we did with Atkins was a full floor, albeit the majority was open plan. You literally had people putting smoke detectors on over here. Then as you fanned round, they were finishing the painting. Then as you fanned round, the carpet was going in. So it was literally just everyone was moving at the same time on that weekend in order to get the staff from D-Ring over to West Bay. So it was like a 3-day process from nothing on the floor and no paint on the walls and no final fix to just getting everything done. And it's all about coordination and planning. But in an industry or in a sector like ours, and in the part of the world like Qatar, it can be quite challenging to coordinate several disciplines at the same time. But yeah, we got there, and we got there just on time, just in time. We're very pleased with the results. It was the first floor and the first time that we had actually split a floor within such a complex tower, and I think that was fairly successful. And again, that was what extended the overall duration of the project. But yeah, I remember Tanya and obviously Jason and yourself, you know, coming across and having a look at it, and it did seem to, again, you take it from an open plan environment, which it was. It's very hard. You see the visual renders, and you see the plans, and you see that you have meeting rooms, but until you've got paint on the walls and carpet on the floor, you can't envisage it.
So hard, guys. It really is. But going back to it again, you know, obviously we talked about how I build my, you know, building our business and how that operates as well. But in sense of obviously the excellent job that Hamish being a mutual client of both of ours, I know being close to Jason at the time of the process, that was certainly one thing that pushed us towards using, you know, yourself and Brief purely from the excellent words that Hamish had to say about the job that you had done up the stairs, you know, and I guess that's probably, I'm sure Jason probably didn't insinuate it at the time, but it's probably definitely what led him to going, right, okay, there's actually a reference here, there's actually someone that's giving great feedback, and that's how business is done in the Middle East, I think, you know, it really is.
Yeah, it's about relationship building, and too many people are bogged down, me included, you know, latterly, in the past sort of year, doing a lot of coaching, and I know yourself, you've got a number of mentors as well, and you need that. You need people to give you that guidance, and instead of working on your business and working in your business, being able to grow it and keep those relationships, you know, maintained. You touched on it earlier that you were unhappy with the lack of management that you had of your clients, that you had to change and sort of diversify your way of doing that. And we constantly have to do it. We constantly have to manage the relationships and spend more time on it rather than the mundane tasks that tend to bog us down. We were very pleased with the results. We were delighted that you guys were pleased as well. The office is obviously still going strong. One final question. What's your favorite consultation room?
It's got to be London. London. So just for anyone that's watching this, all our consultation rooms are named after a kind of financial city or jurisdiction. So we got Hong Kong, Sydney, London, New York. God, I'm forgetting
Cape Town.
Cape Town, yes. So yeah, London corner room. That's the popular one. That one's always booked.
Chris, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I found that very insightful. I hope you guys did as well. We'll have this video up on YouTube and the podcast out in the coming days. Chris, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll catch up. We'll catch up when the lockdown eases off. But for now, thanks very much. This has been Simon Joss. This is Qatar. We will see you next week.